Alright, so the fighters are on the island, weigh-ins are done, COVID testing's taken care of. Nothing left but to do except break down our expectations for the fight card of the year. So in this video, I'm just going to be going down my predictions, my assessments, and my thoughts over what to expect Saturday night. So let's get into it. So some things to take into account before we get started. As many of y'all know, the fight island is in Abu Dhabi. So most of these fighters had to go from the US to Abu Dhabi, so they could be having to deal with some jet lag. I'm sure they've had a few days to try to deal with that. They're still having to cut weight, so that's always going to be an issue. And just mentally getting ready to fight, and the heat over there is crazy. So I'm sure they're going to be ready. They're handling it the best they can, but just always keep that in mind whenever you're looking at the challenges these fighters are facing. Who knows if it's going to have an effect on them or not, but just something to take into consideration. Other than that, let's get started. Kicking off the main card, we have Amanda Ribas versus Paige VanZant in a women's flyweight division bout. So about Amanda Ribas, I know she has a brilliant jiu-jitsu black belt and a black belt in judo, and she trains on American Top Team, which has been on a crazy run throughout the UFC these past couple years. So she has that experience. Paige VanZant, on the other hand, she's come a long way in her career. I feel like she's at one of those points where this fight's going to make or break her. She's been respected. At one point, Paige was one of the youngest fighters on the roster, but now she's grown, developed. She's had some big fights, and especially after one of her last bouts where she broke her arm in mid-fight and ended up finishing that fight like a badass. So she obviously has something to prove. She wants to get back into the ring and show that she's not just some person who's going to be a walk by in the flyweight division. Amanda Ribas is trying to make something to prove, to make a big splash in the division as well. Between the two, I would have to say Amanda Ribas, just because I believe she has more experience with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and with the judo. I've seen some of her videos where she throws people over her hip like nothing. She's going to really want to mix it up. Not saying that Paige can't handle that, but I feel like Amanda Ribas it's her time right now, and she wants to go ahead and ride that wave into making a big splash. Next up, we have a rematch in the women's strawweight division where we have Jessica Andrade versus Thug Rose Namajunas. So in this fight, I know they fought once before. I watched that first fight. If you go back and watch it, I think you'll see what I see. Of course, Thug Rose was beating her like crazy. Not like crazy, I would say she just had a really good control on the fight. And everything was going well, everything was going according to plan, and then Jessica Andrade came out of nowhere, took a hold of her side, and dropped her on her head for one of the greatest slam knockouts I've seen in a while. But Thug Rose, she is a fighter. She's a very methodical fighter. When she's in her zone and she's in her focus, I don't think there's anything stopping her. So seeing that first fight, seeing how much Rose had that fight under control and everything was going her way, minus that takedown, which ended up costing her greatly. But as far as everything else was going according to plan. So I'm sure she has that confidence. She could build up on that. Jessica Andrade knows that she may have gotten lucky on that fight. If it wasn't for that takedown, if it wasn't for that slam. So she knows she's going to have to sharpen up on some things. So this fight is really going to be a fight of adjustments. I think it's going to be a very mental fight for Rose because, after what happened to her in the last fight, she's maybe a little cautious when she's throwing. Jessica Andrade needs to focus mentally as well because she can't be taking those punches and losing at the end of those combos and letting Rose control the fight like she was in the first time. I'm going to have to give it to Thug Rose just because I feel like she understands where she messed up at in the last fight, and she's going to come in with that killer instinct focus, and once she gets in her zone, I feel like Thug Rose is unstoppable. So next up, we got Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. Let's back up a little bit. So remember a few weeks ago when the bantamweights had one of their best cards ever put together, and we had two knockout of the year contenders by Cody Garbrandt and Sean O'Malley? Well, this is where they all want to end up at. This is going to be for the title, and Peter Yan and Jose Aldo, most people don't know that they do have a history together of training back in the day, but this was way back when Jose was still champ. So in those bouts, what people have said, they said that Jose got the best of Peter Yan. Yeah, that's sparring, not the same as fighting. There's a weight difference there too, but going into that, maybe there's things that Peter Yan's gotten better at, and maybe there's things that Jose Aldo got better at. I feel like this fight may be a very underestimated fight. People don't understand how much this is going to affect the UFC moving forward, especially when you got up-and-coming bantamweights like Sean O'Malley, Cody Garbrandt. And it's also kind of controversial because Jose Aldo lost his last fight. So when I saw that fight, I thought Jose Aldo won, and I was surprised whenever they gave the split decision to Morales. A big component I think that Jose Aldo is going to have to look at in this fight is controlling his power, and now that whole doubt that happened, those surrounding his fight last time with is he going to make weight, how's he going to be at this weight, is he going to be easier to knock out, all that is gone with the win. I think Jose Aldo is here to prove that he belongs in this division. Not only does he belong here, he deserves to be king here. So who knows? I think Jose Aldo's takedown defense is going to come in key. I think his confidence is going to be built after coming through his last fight. Even though he took the loss, he's going to be looking for a kill now. So he's not going to leave it in the hands of the judges. So expect to see Jose Aldo being more aggressive. And of course, it's not obvious already, I'm going to go with Jose Aldo. Now we go into one of my favorite fights on this card, and that's going to be Alexander Volkanovski against Max Holloway. So the last fight that they had, it was a very, very close fight. Volkanovski ended up taking that belt from Max. I think that Max has learned which adjustments he needs to make, and he's learned from his mistakes in the last fight. In the last fight, Volkanovski instantly started taking down Max to his legs. He started kicking him in the legs, and eventually that made Max switch his stance. I think Max, he's definitely good at switching stances. You'll see that a lot in his movements whenever he's throwing combos, but whenever he can't have that option to go back to his other stance, it started to make a little hesitation for him. So I think he's going to have to check some kicks. Obviously, he knows his distance very, very well, so he's going to have to focus on that. And then he's going to have to get his combos off as well as letting Volkanovski get worn out. Max has been known to wear his opponents out like he did to Brian Ortega, where he just gets better as he fights. So the first time these two fought, it came down to a decision. And I personally thought that Max won. And simply because Volkanovski was getting the best of Max in the first 2 rounds, but then after, in the midway through the third, towards the rest of the fight, Max just seemed to be in the driver's seat. Volkanovski was just kind of in there for little sparks. Max was doing his best to adjust to Volkanovski's fight style, and I think he was putting it together a little too late. So for this one, I think Max is going to have to keep his stance, stay comfortable, notice his range. Volkanovski has that power with him that, you know, a lot of people don't expect him to have. So for my pick out of these two, I'm definitely going to have to go with Max Holloway, just simply because I think he can figure it out faster. I think once he's gotten a bit of an experience with Volkanovski, he knows how to put the pieces together now. And yeah, we'll just see a more comfortable Max, a more confident Max moving into this fight. I know he wants that belt back as soon as possible. Finally, we got the main event: Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. This is going to be a great fight. I don't think people realize how much it is. Actually, I take that back. I think people do realize how big of a fight this is going to be. Like I said in the last video, Jorge Masvidal is going to have to get his combos off, stay explosive, and keep Kamaru guessing and get ready for his grappling attacks. Kamaru Usman is going to have to figure out a way to control Jorge Masvidal's explosiveness, not let him get too comfortable throwing combos, and try to take him into deep waters if he finds out he can't finish him sooner than that. Jorge took this fight on 6 days' notice. He had to cut 22 pounds. Jorge Masvidal's coach, Mike Brown, is going to be there in his corner this weekend because he's tested positive for COVID-19. Which sucks, but Jorge seems to be in confidence that he could still win this fight. Like I said, I think Jorge Masvidal is going to have to get his combos off, stay explosive, keep Usman guessing on which angles he's going to attack from. He has a good takedown defense. He has experience with grappling. Who knows? I think Usman's going to try to test that. Usman, on the other hand, I believe he's going to try to control Jorge's explosiveness, try to limit his combos, and try to control the cage a bit more and even get a hold of him in the clinches. And so I expect to see a lot of that. But who knows? We could have another Colby Covington type fight where they just stand there and bang. So my pick between these two, said in the last video, should come to no surprise, but it's going to be Jorge Game Bread Masvidal. I believe he's going to put on a great performance again. I don't see this going past the 3rd round in his favor. I went over it in the last video. This fight has great implications for the winner for the championship of this belt. You know, it's going to be a memorable fight, guys. You know, 3 championships on the line, an amazing stacked card, probably the best stacked card we've had in a long, long time. And I'll be right back on Sunday with another video going over how UFC 251 went, going over my thoughts on some of the fights and what's to come in the aftermath afterwards. I hope to catch y'all then. Please like, subscribe, share if you'd like to, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.